Okay guys, so today I'm going to be showing you guys 3 different Christmas bags that I made this season. So the first I'm going to give you guys a full tutorial on, and it is my Quilt-as-you-go Christmas shopping tote. It is a nice size tote, not too big, not too big. It fits nicely under my arm, and it has a box bottom so you can easily put your shopping items in it. And I even showed you how to do a French seam so that you can hide all of the raw edges of your fabric. Now, you could make a ton of these to go shopping. I love Christmas shopping this time of year at like little markets and farmers market type things, and a lot of times they don't have bags there for you, so definitely want to bring your own. And why not bring something fun and cheerful with your favorite Christmas fabric? So that is the first bag that I'm going to be showing you that I made this year. The next is the Pelican tote bag. So it's a little more, you know, dressy, little more classic purse style rather than a shopping tote. And then it has some storage in it for you. Now this is a free pattern on Bagstock Design, so you don't have to pay anything to utilize this pattern. I really love how you can highlight an accent fabric that you really love and then use some faux leather or cork or something on the side panels to just add a little bit of fun and kind of glam to it. So let's take a look at the features of the bag. So there is a zipper pocket on the front, so you can store some items there and keep them safe. You can see I used a really cute snowflake zipper pull there. And then the top of the bag has a closure on it, just a magnetic snap, and then inside you have another zipper pocket. It would be really easy if you know how to put a zipper pocket on the other side or even a slip pocket. So a lot of nice storage in this bag. The last pattern that I used to make a Christmas bag is the Cumbria Tote bag from Sotac Patterns. I'll put a link as well to that one in the description. And this one is one that you would have to purchase. It's not a free pattern, but it is a lot of fun to do, and it will teach you how to do some different things on a bag that you maybe haven't done yet. So you can see here, I did some quilting for this bag, just a simple pieced little squares. They finish at 1 inch, and I started with 1.5 inch and just quilted to the size of panel, which would normally be in the pattern just a solid piece of fabric here on the side. Then I used the marine vinyl on the side. So this bag doesn't have any storage on the outside. It's just the same on the front and the back. However, inside you have a lot of storage. You have a zipper pocket on one side, and it is nice and sizable. And then you have a divider pocket in the middle of the bag, you can see here, and that is a zipper closure as well. And then on the other side you have a slip pocket, and this one, the directions do show you how to put a snap there so that you can keep your items safe, keep it a little more secure in there. So there are the 3 bags that I made this year for Christmas. Like I said, I'll give you a full tutorial on the little Quilt-as-you-go bag that I made for shopping, and then I'll kind of walk a little more detailed through the pieces for these 2 bags so you kind of know which cuts go where and everything, if you want to make something similar to what I did. So let me know in the comments which bag you like the best. If you're going to try and make one of them, I'd love to hear from you. And all right, we'll jump right into the Quilt-as-you-go bag. Okay, so the first bag that we're going to work on is the Quilt-as-you-go holiday shopping tote. And this will be really easy, in my opinion, to put together. A very good beginner tote. So what you'll need is some lining fabric and go ahead and get that prepped with whatever you're going to use for your backing for it. You could use some batting if you would like. I'm using Fusible fleece here because it is what I had on hand, and that's what I really like to do, is use what I have on hand. So I cut mine to 17 inches by 33 inches. So I did that with the Fusible fleece and with the lining fabric. And the Fusible fleece makes it a little bit easier because you can just go ahead and fuse it right onto your fabric. If you're using some batting that isn't one of the fusible battings, you'll want to use a like a 505 spray adhesive to attach the batting to your lining fabric. So you attach that fleece to the wrong side of your fabric, and it looks like I need to press mine a little bit more because there's a little bit of lift there. It's not too big of a deal because you're going to be quilting across all of this. So those are the first two things you need. You need your lining and you need your like kind of stabilizer, batting or fusible fleece, something like that. Then you're going to need a jelly roll. And what we'll be doing is just quilt as you go, starting at one end. You'll be taking two, putting them right sides together. You could probably go ahead and just cut all these in half too if you're gonna double some up, but we're gonna be putting them right side together, starting at one end. Sew a 1/4 inch seam, iron it over or press it over, and then just keep building down. Now, I'll be sure to show it a little bit better, but when we get to the end of the bag, to the other end, we may have our last one fold over to right here. Don't put another one on, just we'll trim it off later, because you don't want one end of your bag to be really short and have a tiny little bit of fabric. You want it to be even. So if you end like right here, you know, we'll just trim it down. Okay, so I'm gonna set this to the side and we'll talk about some of the other things I have here. Okay, so we have our jelly roll for all of the Quilt-as-you-go, but I also use some for straps as well. So I have two that are the same because, hold on, I'm gonna have to shake you a minute because it was under my camera stand. So we're going to have two that I cut to 34 inches long, and I fused some fusible fleece to it. If you want to still use batting or something like that, you may want to use like some double-sided tape or something like that to hold it in place. Just remember that whatever you use to attach it, your needle is going to need to be able to go through it. My needles seems to do pretty fine on this double-sided tape, but just think about your machine and what it is able to do. So 2.5 inches wide and 34 inches long is what I cut mine to. If you like your strap longer or shorter, just consider that as well. And then my fusible fleece is about 1 inch wide. What I'm going to be doing next is folding these into the center and pressing it. So that will be step one on my strap for these two. And then for these, they are 34 inches long as well, and they are from a jelly roll strip as well. But I trim these down to 2 inches, and my fusible fleece is 3/4 of an inch in here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold these into the center and press it really well. Now, after I press them, what I'm going to be doing is laying this in the center like that. So you'll see a little bit of each side of the green, and I'll come back and show you how that's going to look, of course, but just so you have an idea of where I'm going with this. It's just to kind of give the strap a little bit extra pizzazz. It's gonna be, you know, have a two-tone look to it, and I think it'll look really good. So I'm gonna get the straps ready. I'm gonna press them into the center there, like I said, and I probably will use some of my double-sided tape to hold the center of the smaller one onto the green for when I go to sew. But I will show you that you could use pins or some clips if you have them or anything like that. I just like to have that really sturdy piece of tape holding it there so I don't get a lot of shifting, because I like to sew fast and it can get pretty wonky. Even with the tape holding it in place, I can get pretty wild with it. The nice thing is I think nobody really notices except me when I get little mess ups. So I'm gonna press these and then we'll meet back up to see how it looks putting the center onto the green. Okay, so before I show you how I attach these together, I wanted to mention that I also set aside 2 strips of 2.5 inch by width of fabric strips for the binding that will be at the top of the bag. Okay, so I already have one that's put together, so this is what your strap will look like. I think making a strap this way is really cute, but you could just make a strap really any way that you prefer. So what I did was take my double-sided tape, and this is I believe it's a 1/2 inch. Yeah, it's a 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape. I do have a 1/4 inch as well, but I figured the 1/2 inch would probably work a little bit better here, just to make sure I am able to hold down the strip really well. And I just put it across the center of the larger strap. And I leave about like a 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 empty on each end, because it's going to get tucked into the binding of the bag. Okay, so after I lay the double-sided tape down, I just take off the protective like sticker cover, whatever it's called. And I just really eyeball it, because I'm not too picky, but then I just lay my other strip down across, trying to leave about the same amount visible of the darker green on each side. And that's it. So if you didn't have double-sided tape, don't want to purchase it, I completely understand, because I like to, you know, just keep things on hand that I know I will use a lot. You could always just take some clips, and what I do if I'm using them is I just go on either side over a couple of inches and go across, because it'll reach on both sides. But if you only put them on one side, you're going to have another side that flips up a lot, so go back and forth. And I think that works pretty well also, and then you'll just remove them as you sew. You can use just your, you know, standard pin that you have if you want. I would go right in the middle and go through and hold it and try to sew with the end facing you so you can pull them out as you come along. My only reason for, if you have the clips, try to use those or double-sided tape, is that how you see how it bunches up like this. Anytime I've had to use pins, this has kind of happened where if you're not sewing really slow and really careful, you may get some waviness in your strap. But you know, it will probably be one of those things where it's just something you notice because you sewed it. If that's all you have, then use it. All right, so all we'll do here is take these to the sewing machine, put in the thread color that you want to use, and We're going to do an 1/8 of an inch seam. We're going to do an 1/8 of an inch top stitch across both sides of the thinner strap. So you won't need to do it on the outer, just the inner strap. So an 1/8 of an inch across each side. I'll probably put my stitch lengths to about 3.5. Just I think it makes a lot nicer, longer stitch on something like this. So that is what I'm doing next to prep these, and then we'll talk about putting the bag together. Okay, so now that we have the straps finished, we're going to set these to the side and we're going to work on our bag and our quilt as we go process. So we'll need our prepped lining that has either your fusible fleece on it or batting, whatever you're choosing to use. And then we're going to need our jelly roll. So what we're going to do here is just kind of go through your jelly roll and pick which fabrics you are going to want to use. So like I said, you could always cut these in half because you can use, one of them can be a focal twice on your project. So go through, pick out which ones you definitely know you want to use on your project, and then we'll meet back up. Okay, now that I have everything laid out in kind of the order that I think I will be assembling this, I want to point out that I'm using only 2 directional fabrics here, but once I hit the middle, I want the directional fabric facing up towards the end on this side and then up towards the end on this side, because this bag is going to be folded with these ends making the top. And so you want to make sure that directional fabric is facing up towards the end, or it might look kind of funny. You might not like it if it's upside down. So now that I have it in order, I'm going to leave the 2 that I'm going to start with there, and I'm just going to stack them in the order that I'm going to be sewing them on. I actually made sure to add a few more. You can see I overlapped, and I may not in the end need all these. Maybe as I sew and see them laid out better, maybe I'll change my mind. But for the most part, I think this will be the order that I want them to be in. Okay, so I have my stack that I'm going to take over to the sewing machine with me. And I don't want those to be folded, sorry. So how I'll be sewing these again, like I said, I'm going to start at the top, and I want that first one to be right there at the top. Now you can just overlap it if you want, because we'll trim it down later, however you feel comfortable, but I want it right at that edge. And then I'll put the next one on facing together. Now you'll want the thread in your sewing machine to be a thread that you're okay with showing on your lining, because it will be showing through. I'm going to put a few pins in because I want everything to say nice and straight. But keep in mind that this stitching that we're going to do, the 1/4 inch across here, is going to be the quilting that shows on your lining. So whatever you choose for that, I chose red to be on my strap, so I'm gonna have red be the color that shows up on this side as well. But like I said, just use a thread that you're okay with showing on the lining of your bag. Okay, so I have everything sewn in place, and I want to point out 2 things. So you see along the edge for where I started, I put about 1/8 of an inch stitch across here to hold it in place. And I did the same on my last one, and you see I have a little bit of extra fabric here that I'm going to trim off along with trimming off the excess over the sides. So this should be about a 2 1/4 inch wide, and I want to make sure it's straight because my sewing may not be even. So I'm gonna put my acrylic ruler here, try to get the 2 1/4 line pretty straight across here, as straight as I can get it, and then I will trim the side off. I didn't need to push as hard as I did because I just put a new blade in. And so then I'm going to trim along these other sides, and I'm going to do that from the back because then I can use the back here kind of as a guide. And I'll do the same on the other side as well. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could do some extra quilting on here. I tend to leave it as is because if I'm gonna do quilt as you go, I'm gonna keep it as simple as possible because why not? So basically now we're in the home stretch and it's going to be really easy to bring this together because we already have our straps done and all that. So bear with me right here. You do not have to do it this way. If you want to make this a little even simpler, put right sides together and sew along the edges. I'm going to show you a quick and easy way with French seams to hide your seams that would typically be on the inside of your bag if you're doing a quilt as you go bag. So we're going to first bring wrong sides together, and I'm going to put a few clips in. Most of my clips right now are over by my sewing machine. So normally I would put more than this, but I need to bring them back over here. So line it up and put some clips in. So we're going to sew our seam just along the two sides of the bag, and we're going to leave the top open. So we're going to sew with wrong sides together first, and we're just going to sew those seams. I'm going to do probably a 1/4 inch because next I'm going to do well, you'll see we're going to do a wider stitch length to hide our seams inside of it. So I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch along here on the right sides of my bag along both sides.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us.
Okay, so now we have the sides of the bag sewn, and we're going to flip the bag inside out.
Adore him, Christ the Lord, God of God, light of light. Lo, he abhors not the...
And now what we're going to do is sew another set of stitches, another seam along both sides of the bag. But this time we're going to do a generous 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that will hide those seams in here inside of all of that stitching so that this stitching will be closed off and we won't see the raw edge. Okay, so now that we have our seams sewn on both sides, we can turn it right side out and take a look. So mainly you'll just want to make sure that along the edge that you caught all that raw edge inside there. Looks pretty good. I do have some loose thread here. I'm not gonna pull it because it could just unravel stuff. I should have got my little snips, but that'll work for now. So then you can take a look and see how it's coming along. Pretty cute. Okay, so you can leave your tote like this if you would like. I am going to box the corners on mine to give the bag a little bit more body so that it's not flat. If you want to just leave it like this and you don't want to box the bottom, that's fine. Just skip over to when we put the handles on the bag. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is if you are following along and doing the French seam, you're going to have a lot of bulk here. So boxing the seams, you'll want to make sure, or to box the bag, you want to make sure that your sewing machine can sew through this thick layer of fabric that we're going to have here. And then also think about, you know, just make sure that your sewing machine can handle all that extra fabric, basically. So to box the corners, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can turn your bag and line everything up. This is not my preferred way because I always get it a little off. Line everything up, and you can just sew across here and cut it off after. That makes, I never get it lined up well. So for me, it's easier to cut out my squares first. So I want my box to kind of start here. So I'm going to measure, would help if I measure the right side. So if that's about 2.5 inches for me. So what I'm going to do is line up my ruler and cut off about 2.5 inch square on the corner here. And yes, it's kind of nerve-wracking, and I'm not going to cut right at the seam. I'm going to stay at the 2.5 because that's all going to fall into a seam allowance anyway. But I want to keep this nice and square. So I'm just going to cut off the corner, and I'm going to have to put a little force there because there is a lot of fabric. And you might want to mark it and just do it with scissors if you feel more comfortable, so you don't overcut too much, but a little bit's fine because it'll fall into your seam. But then you have this little piece here. I'm just going to throw it to the side for now. Now do the same on the other side. So we're going to do like a little 2.5 inch box. I didn't cut through some of it. I'm not going to use that to finish the cut. I'm going to use some scissors. Okay. So for me, it's essentially doing the same thing that I showed you before, bringing the corners together. But this, with it cut, I feel like I'm able to make sure I line it up a little bit better. That's just what works for me. So now I'm going to use my clips, and again, this wouldn't be typically what you would do, but for this instance, we are going to sew first on the wrong sides together, and that's just so that we can hide these raw edges on the inside of our bag. So I'm going to line this up, put some clips in, and then I'm going to go sew a scant 1/4 inch seam on this side, and then after I'm going to flip the bag wrong side out and sew a generous 1/2 inch seam on the other side to hide all the raw edges. And I'm going to go really slow across that seam there, because that is a lot of fabric there. Okay, so now the bottom of my bag is boxed and all the seams are hidden in there. Now, if you don't want such a boxy bag, just lower the cut for your square. So you could do 2 inches, you could do 1.5. I mean, it just depends on how you like your shopping bag or tote bag to be. I like to be able to fit a lot of bigger items in the bottom of my bag. So for me, I like nice and boxy. But you know, it just depends on what you want your bag to look like. So now we're moving on to attaching the straps. I like to have a wide opening in the middle of my straps so that it can fit comfortably over my shoulder and under my arm. I don't like it to be tight. So for me, I'm gonna go about 3 inches in from each side, and that's where my strap is going to lay. So I'm gonna put a little clip here, and you want the side of your strap that is showing to be facing right sides with your bag for now. So 3 inches. And then what I'm going to do is just go baste these in place, because I want these to be hidden in my binding that I'm gonna put on around the bag. So I'm gonna baste them in place, and for now, put the binding on, and then after the binding, I'm going to flip these up and sew a box around to keep them in place. Now you don't have to have it going all the way down to the next strip. You could have it up higher above it. Just make sure it's even. For me, I'm going to do it at the strip, because then I know it's even, and it's just easier for me that way. But however you want to do it is fine. So I'm going to get the other side in place, and then go baste those in place and attach the binding. One thing to keep in mind also is you don't want your strap to be all twisted. So see how my strap is just laying nicely across here? You don't want to end up accidentally, you know, turning it where there's all these twists, because you'll never be able to get that out unless you rip seams. So make sure the side you want showing of your strap is facing right sides together with your bag, and make sure there's no twists in your strap. My husband would be like, what is your no twist in your strap? He is very much a grammar stickler. So I'm gonna go baste these in place, and then we'll talk about the binding. Okay, so I have the straps basted in place. So you can see not even 1/4 of an inch there. It's like trying to be around 1/8 of an inch. And that's just going to hold them in place while I attach the binding. So to do that, I like to turn the bag inside out. And I think of it just as I would putting a binding on a quilt. I like to attach the binding to the inside lining, you know, of the bag first. So I'll leave myself a long tail, and then just sew 1/4 of an inch all the way around until I get to where I need to stop somewhere so that I can attach the binding together and finish the binding ends together and finish sewing it. Then I just flip the bag back right side out and you know, top stitch the binding in place on the right side of the bag. Now, if you prefer attaching your binding in a different way, like you want to do it to the right side of the bag and then hand sew it to the wrong side of the bag or something like that, go ahead and do that in your favorite way. Now, something to keep in mind is that you don't want to have to join the binding together at the seam, and you don't want to have to join it together at one of the straps. So that really limits you to one of the sides between the strap handles. Now, I know, because I feel the same way, like, oh, I'd really like to hide where I join the binding in one of the seams on the side or something like that, because maybe, I know for me, I always get a little bit of gathering at it because I don't measure perfectly and I don't sew perfectly, so I'd really like to hide it there. The best thing I can say is, like, which side would you like to be the front of your bag most of the time? And whatever size you choose, start the binding on the opposite side, because then at least it will maybe be always the side tucked up against the side of your body or something. So I really like the kind of candy cane look here, so I'll probably put the polka dots as the back of my bag. So I'll just start the binding over there. Now, you do want to make sure your straps are tucked into your bag, because you are just going to sew the binding right over them. So I'm going to start sewing the binding on really close to the handle start, so that I can meet the binding ends together about in the middle there. So I'll put some clips on to just kind of show where I'm going to start. And then, just so I remember where I want to stop sewing, I'm going to put a clip at that handle, because I'll just keep going. All this color is the same. I'll just keep going and going, and then be like, oh, I didn't give myself enough room to, you know, bring these together. So I'm going to go sew the binding on and put that in place, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with the handles afterward. Okay, so here is the Quilt-as-you-go Christmas shopping tote all finished. And let me just point out a few things. So when you're sewing the binding in place, you have this long seam down the side of the bag. And when you sewed it down at the box corner, you sewed the seam going in one direction. So make sure when you sew across your binding that it's laying in that same direction, so that it's all flat. Let me turn it inside out, so that they're both going in the same direction, because if you accidentally sew it going this way up here, you'll have a twist. So just make sure along each side seam that you sew this this French seam in the same direction. It'll make everything lay just that much better. Now, with the straps, all I did was, they were laying down this way. I just folded them up where I liked them, so I came all the way down to this seam and folded them up, and I just sewed a box. I started sewing across here, down, down, up, and then back stitched across there. So you can see that on both sides. Now you don't have to come down as far as I did. If you want a longer strap, you could just fold right at where the binding is. It's up to you. So this bag comes together so quickly. I hope you enjoy making it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And now we'll move on to the Christmas purse that we'll be making. Okay, so for my Christmas purse or Christmas handbag, I am going to be using the Pelican tote pattern from Bag Stock Designs, and it's a very beginner pattern. There are tons and tons of photos to help along the way, and the best thing is that it's a free pattern. I've made this purse before, and I have a full tutorial on my YouTube channel for this purse if you do need help with any parts of it, with putting it together. Here I'm going to go over my color selection and where the fabrics are going to go on my purse, just so you have an idea of how you may want to cut out the fabric that you are using. So here is the first bag I made using this pattern, and the purse has a front zip pocket, and then it has a snap closure. It's a magnetic snap. These little tabs help hold it together, and then inside you just have another zip pocket. So it is a pretty simple purse. It comes together pretty fast, and I really enjoyed making it. I think you will too. So let me go over what I have here. So these are the handles for the bag, and I cut mine out of some green marine vinyl. I purchased it from, I think it's My Fabric Warehouse Direct, or My Wholesale Fabric Direct, something like that. I'll put a link to it because the this vinyl kind of has a leather look and feel, but it's very, very durable, and it is very cost effective to purchase, especially if you're just getting started in bag making and you don't want to spend a ton of money, but you want it to kind of look elegant. It's a good choice. Okay, and then where I'm also using that marine vinyl is on the side panels. So the side of the bag, let me show you right along here on each side, on the front and on the back. So that is where this green marine vinyl is also going to be shown. When you cut this, you want to make sure that you cut two facing one way and then two facing the other way. So keep that in mind when you're cutting it, and the instructions are on the pattern piece as well, which makes it so much easier to remember what you need to cut. Since I am using the marine vinyl, I chose not to do the woven interfacing because this is pretty sturdy, and I just don't feel like it needs anything else to help stabilize it. Okay, so then I'm going to show you kind of the extras that you need that aren't fabric. You're going to need 2 zippers. You're going to need one for the outside of the bag, and then you're going to need one for the inside. Last year when I ordered a bunch of zippers and zipper pulls, I got this really cute snowflake pull from My Handmade Space, and I'm like, yes, I finally get to use it on something. I think it'll look really cute on this Christmas bag. So I have those, and then I have a magnetic snap that's for that top closure. You also need washers with these. They typically come with the snap, so I have that as well. All right, so for the exterior of the bag, I have this fabric that I am going to use. It's so pretty. It's Layla Boutique, and I can't think of the name of it. If I remember, I will put it in the description as well, because I just really think this fabric is going to look really nice, make the bag have a very Christmas feel, but I don't think it'll be so overly Christmassy that I couldn't use the bag at other times, because there's like a lot of floral on here. And so what I did was I cut out the pattern piece and I cut it on a fold. Now there is also woven interfacing on here, so it is covered. You can kind of see it a little bit on the side, but I use woven interfacing, and then I also put some fusible fleece on here. So it's not just woven interfacing. I also did a fusible fleece just to make it a little more sturdy. On the other bag I made, where the fabric is, I used Decoville to make it a little more sturdy. So I prefer the sturdier feel on it. If that's not something that you want, then you don't have to put this, but these are the front panels, and the zipper would go between, and this is that panel that's on the back of the bag. Now we have the lining of the bag. So I have 2 for the main lining of the bag, and these just have the woven interfacing on them, and then these pieces are for the zipper pockets. So I have 2 here for a zipper pocket, and then another longer one for a zipper pocket. The last item we have is the closure tabs. Last time I did them with the contrasting fabric. So this is a faux leather that I purchased from emmelinebags.com. This faux leather from her is absolutely gorgeous. It is a much better quality and feel much more luxurious than the marine vinyl I'm using here. However, it is pricier. Now, the reason I chose this time to go with the fabric that I'm using for the lining rather than the contrasting fabric, the contrasting fabric looks lovely. However, it was really hard to get nice curves with this heavier fabric. I could have gone with, you know, my main fabric instead, but I chose to just use the lining fabric, let it kind of blend in a little bit. But that's just up to you. I just wanted to let you know the reason that I'm using the lining and I'm using fabric instead of the my contrasting fabric on this one is because of that reason. Getting those curves nice was very difficult. So I'm going to start sewing this together. You can download this pattern for free from the Bagstock website. I will put a link to it and follow along, get it made. This isn't going to be a full tutorial video. If you would like a full tutorial, I'll put a link to the one that I did for my other bag, but otherwise I think you'll be fine with just using the pattern information. It is so detailed. So keep on watching so you can see the finished bag. Okay, so here is my Christmas fabric Pelican tote all finished. I really love how it turned out. I love the little snowflake on the front. I think it's such a cute touch, and this fabric is just perfect for it. I really am so happy with how it turned out. You have that inside zipper. I do actually really like having these tabs. The lining color, I think it helps it just blend in a little bit more. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you're going to make one. Remember, this is a free pattern on the Bagstock website, so you can go grab that for free and make as many as you would like, and they come together really quickly. So now I'm going to show you the last bag that I'm going to make. That's Christmas fabric inspired. It's going to have a little bit of quilting on it just to give a nod to my one true sewing love, which is quilting. I like to put it in little things just to show that I really love to quilt. So let's take a look at that pattern and what I'm going to be doing with it. Okay, so the last bag that I'm going to be working on is the Cumbria Tote bag by Sotac Patterns. And it is a lovely little bag. Look at these. Aren't those adorable? So for this bag, there are two different sizes. Now this is a pattern that you would have to purchase if you want to make the bag. So I'm not going to be giving any measurements or anything like that. And then in the description of this video, I will put a link to where you can purchase this pattern if you're interested. And I'll also provide a link to a video tutorial that the person who designed this pattern has put together. What I am going to be showing is the pieces that I cut and where they will be on the bag so that you kind of have an idea of how my bag is coming together. And I'll also show you how I'm adding on a quilted area of the bag. Okay, so there is the bag, and then you can see here the sizes. The large, which is the one I'm going to be doing, is 13 by 12 by 5. All right, so I'm gonna set this to the side because I don't wanna give away any of the pattern information. Okay, so for the quilting on the bag, well, let me first set aside some of the items that you will need 2 zippers for this bag, and then you will also be directed to cut some zipper tabs. So I'm gonna set those to the side. And since they're on top here, I'm going to show you, I am doing kind of a buffalo plaid quilt design because I'm all about that right now. You know, I made a pillow earlier with my Christmas fabric with the buffalo plaid design. So what I did was I cut some dark, okay, so some dark, some light, and some medium strips that are 1.5 inches. You'll need double the medium strips. And I'll let you know exactly how much I cut in the description of this video because it'll just be easier to keep all of that there. But this is what I'm doing for the quilting on the bag. I'm using these strips. And then after I piece the buffalo plaid strips together, I'm going to be making sure that it is the proper size for that cut, which would be fabric B, main exterior for the small or for the large bag. So just be aware that there will be 2 exterior panel Bs, and that's where you'll find the size that you need to get these quilted strips to. Now, after I get those panels constructed, I have some fusible fleece cut to that size for the exterior panel Bs. I have 2 of them that I will be fusing to the back of my quilted panel. Okay, so I'm gonna put these to the side because those are all together. Now for the rest of the bag, I'm using that same marine vinyl from the bag before, and that is my handles for the bag. So I have 2 of those that I'm gonna make into the handle. And then these are the exterior panel A, so fabric A, and I have 2 of them. And if you remember back on the bag, so that is going to be the solid portion here, fabric A, and also the handle on the bag. And so my quilted portion is going to be those 2 fabrics, so the B. Okay, and then the lining of my bag is going to be that fabric that I used as the main part of the bag before. So we have 2 of those. And the main lining panels, these 2 here, are fabric C in the pattern. And then we also are using fabric C again for some slip pockets. So the slip pockets, let me see. So these are the slip pockets. Oh, that's where I was like, I had 2 different fabrics there. And then the pocket divider panels. So these 2 are the pocket divider panels. So main lining, we have slip pockets, and then the pocket divider panels. And then here we have fabric D, and we have think those go together. So we have the pocket divider exterior and then a zipper pocket lining. And then from this fabric D as well, I had those zipper tabs that I showed you earlier. So here is all of my fabric that I'm going to be working with and hardware. And there's also, you will need some sort of snap for this bag as well. So I'm just going to use the same magnetic snap I had before, but you could use cam snaps or anything like that as well. So I'm gonna get started first prepping my buffalo plaid panel that I'm going to be using in place of just a solid exterior panel B. So I'm gonna get those two to the correct size and fuse the fusible fleece on first, and then I'm going to work through the pattern. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be sewing together first to be able to make my row of strips that will make the buffalo plaid design. So I'm gonna sew together these strips. They're going to be dark, medium, dark, medium, dark, medium, dark, medium, dark, medium, dark. So they're gonna alternate like that, starting with a dark and ending with a dark. There'll be 6 dark strips and 5 medium strips in this set. And I'm going to make 2 sets like this since my strips are cut shorter right now. So I'm just gonna sew those together, press them, and then I'm going to be cutting across the strips to get 1.5 inch strips to create my panel. And so I have this set to get my dark, medium, and then I'll also be putting together a medium light strip set like this. And that is going to have start with a medium strip and end with a medium strip, essentially just like this one. So start with a medium. I'll have 6 mediums in this set, and I'll have 5 light strips. So I'll show you that as well after I lay it out. All right, so I have both strip sets sewn. We have the dark light, or medium light, and then we have the dark medium strip set as well. So I'm gonna set one aside, and we're gonna square up one end of this strip set, and then we'll cut 1.5 inch strips from it. We'll need to cut 8 1.5 inch strips from each strip set.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let
Okay, so now that we have our strip sets cut, we are going to make our buffalo plaid design. So you can see on the dark medium strip set, I have my seams all pressed in the same direction. So when I start with that strip set and then move to the light, I'm going to make sure that my seams are pressed in the opposite direction as before, so that I can nest my seams. So I'm just gonna alternate these until I have enough to where I am the length of my my panel that I'm going to need for the pattern. Okay, so once I get enough of these set up, I'm going to sew them all together. So I'm gonna lay them on each other, right sides together, and then you can see how those seams nest together. They can lay right next to each other. Not only does this help get nice points, but it also helps make sure you don't have enough bulk there at the seam. So I'm gonna go through and pin at all of those seams, and then I'm going to sew this panel together. Okay, so I have the panel finished, and I went ahead and attached it to the fusible fleece. Now I'm just going to add some quilting to it, just to add a little bit of spice and interest. Now I want you to keep in mind that you have another panel to make, okay? We're not just making one, there are two that are required for this purse. So I'm going to sew those together as well, and attach it to the fusible fleece and add quilting to it as well, and then just follow along through the pattern. All right, so I have my panel B and B quilted. What I'll do is I will measure them after the quilting, make sure they are still the correct size, and then I'll be attaching the panel A to each one. So I'm just gonna, from now on, follow through the pattern as directed. I also have my straps prepped, and you can see I folded the outer edge into the middle and then just fold them, and I'm going to top stitch along each side. Just follow the pattern here. Like I said, getting the panel B the correct size is the most important. You could always do your quilting on a little a bigger area and then just trim it down afterward if it's easier, but here is how mine turned out. So I'm just gonna follow along with the pattern, and I'll show you how it looks after I'm finished. All right, so here is my last Christmas bag all finished. Show you. So the outside is all there, and then inside is where all of the storage is. So there's a slip pocket that I put a magnetic snap on. Then there's a divider pocket. It's a very big pocket. And then there is a zipper in the lining for another pocket. So a lot of nice storage in this bag, and it's also just a big bag in general with a lot of space. Here's both sides. I think you'll have a lot of fun making it if you make it just as is with the pattern without doing a quilted panel and just a very beautiful fabric that you like. I think it would be a fun bag for you. I just wanted to show you a way you could kind of make it a little bit different than just going with the pattern. All right, there is the Cumbria tote bag. It is from Sew Tac Patterns, and I'll put a link to purchase the pattern in the description below. Okay, you guys, so here are all three of the Christmas bags I made this year. Here is my easy Quilt-as-you-go shopping tote. My Pelican tote bag. It is a free pattern on bag stock. Don't you just love that little snowflake zipper? And then the Cumbria tote bag from Tack Patterns, where I put some quilting on the panels on the side on this bag. So 3 Christmas bag ideas. I'd love to hear from you in the comments and let me know which bag was your favorite. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate your support. Bye.